I'd seen Pollyanna actually, funnily enough, we kind of worked with each other but didn't know about it a couple of years previous. Pollyanna and myself were both in the John Landis film Burke and Hare, in which Pollyanna had a rather established role. I just got my leg cut off by Tim Curry in the opening 2 minutes. But we both did our ADR on the same day, and Pollyanna didn't remember this, but I did. But the main thing was, I saw her in Lucky McKee's movie The Woman, which is a wonderful horror movie. If you haven't seen it, look it up, it's brilliant. Basically, when I was coming up with the character of Lizzie, it was either going to be a rather reserved kind of yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir kind of character, or it was going to be the Lizzie that you saw. And I had 2 actresses in mind for both, and when I was writing it, I wasn't sure what I was going to do until it got to the scene where she's at the door and he answers the door. And whatever that first line was going to determine which of the 2 characters it was going to be. And then Pollyanna's agent got a phone call, and I guess the rest is history.
So I knew that Reese was involved, and that already was really interesting to me. And then on reading the script, I just thought it was really smart and really jet black, and I just loved it and was really excited to meet with Paul about it. And I just wanted to make Lizzie as opposite to him and George as possible. So.
And Reese was actually involved before there was even a script. I'd met him previously through a mutual friend, and I kind of got to, I'm a big fan of The League of Gentlemen and Psychoville as well, so I kind of knew that all those nasty things must come from some sort of interest that's in there. At the time, I was trying to get interest in a feature film, and I was told, well, you've got to make a short, because my background is in documentaries. So I just I had no ideas other than this. Way back when I was 16 years old, I used to watch the BBC television show Game On with Samantha Janus and Neil Stu, and his character was agoraphobic. And I don't know why, but when I was watching it back in 1996, I just thought, wouldn't it suck if he was a serial killer? How would he get his victims? And that's kind of where it came from. So I don't know why I immediately went to serial killer. It could have been any job that would have required him going outside, but I immediately went to serial killer. And so I kind of went back to that many years later, and I emailed Reese and I was like, dude, I've got to make a short film. Agoraphobic serial killer, interested? Yes! My producer on this, James Pears, I spoke to him and we just decided to crowdfund it, and we were very fortunate that a lot of people backed it. We made it for about $6.5 grand. We shot it in 2 days. The entire production, actually, from conception to premiere, was 6 weeks. And so that was kind of our target to get it to Fright Fest, which we were very lucky to have the premiere there. And Reese was lovely. I mean, as soon as he said, as soon as I went to him and said, do you want to do this? And he said yes. I was like, fuck, I've got to write it now. So, and that's kind of where it came from. And I was absolutely ecstatic when Pollyanna came on board, and the crew were fantastic as well. I mean, we got half the makeup crew from Cottons vs. Zombies and all those kind of movies. So it was a lot of fun. It was film school for me. I mean, it's the first narrative piece that I've done, and I've since done another film which was completely different. It was 6 days, all exteriors, it was all at night. So it was it was learning all over again, and I can't wait to get back on a set to do the next thing. So yeah, I mean, a lot of comedy horrors, the biggest complaint always tends to be, well, it's either not scary or it's not funny, or both in worst case scenario. My influences come from John Landis and American Life in London. It's kind of where my career started, and I owe a lot to him. So I like the idea.
What was the werewolf?
I was the werewolf, yeah. I like the idea of the sense of an awkward sense of humour, rather than just writing gags more than anything. Because in this, something's going to happen, so it's kind of that nervous, twitchy laugh, sense of laughter that comes in. Something's going to happen, you just don't know when, and you don't know what. So I was particularly pleased that as soon as he turned up with his apron, this young lady over here was like, oh my god. So yeah, I mean, if it works, then it works. But if it doesn't, then it falls flat. I mean, there are very few films that actually do it very well. Again, I go back to An American Werewolf in London. It wasn't written as a comedy. It wasn't shot as a comedy. It's a horror movie that just happens to be funny. So I think that's probably that's where the gel kind of works. You're not writing gags. You've got real characters reacting to scenarios. How do you deal with something that's stood in front of you that doesn't exist when it's standing in front of you? That kind of thing. And we react the way we would react, and that's what's funny. Because if someone came up to you and said, "I'm a vampire," fuck off. And even if they started biting you, you'd still be like, "Get off," So I think that's where the best kind of comedy and horror works.
Well, I remember afterwards, Paul was, because when we did Fright Fest and did Q&As like this, Paul said, he was surprised by how little improvisation that Rhys and I did, and we really stuck to the script. But I don't know how much Rhys and you talked about changes, but Paul and I talked a little bit at the beginning. For me, it was just about working off what he'd written and how great it was, and the tone that he'd already created, and thinking, how can I work with that more and bring more of what's already set up there. Like, for instance, with Rhys's character talks at the beginning about how everyone just lives to copulate and drink beer, so I kind of added in I was just having a beer next door, and that, or a shag, little bits like that, just to kind of bring in what he'd already set up. And I really wanted to make Lizzie, as like I said, as opposite to him indoors as possible, just to make his discomfort grander. So kind of coming towards him with that hammer, kind of about 2 sugars and things, and watching Rhys work with that and just like shirk away like this timid little creature was really funny. And those are little moments that came out of shooting. But other than that, there were very few changes that were really made.
The main one that sticks out for me, which is just pure Rhys Shearsmith genius, was the line about the boots. And she said, "Hey, nice boots." Yeah, they're definitely mine. That wasn't in the script. That was
Rhys. Yeah, that makes sense, totally. But we didn't really have a rehearsal period.
The rehearsal was, so what are we doing next?
Yeah. But
this. Okay, shoot.
It didn't feel like a rush job or anything like that. It just felt, we'd had a meeting and it felt very natural, and Rhys and I were, we got on, and it just kind of felt right the way that we did it. We ran through it maybe once before we shot it. And
there are a lot of photos taken by the stills guy of Polly and Rhys talking, and me just kind of sat in the background, like all Google-eyed going.